Welcome to the Live Big podcast, where real estate expert Nick Paynes shows you that everyone can build wealth through real estate investing. Nick and his featured guests will give you the tools, resources, and expert information you need to leverage real estate into a wealth-building strategy, so you can stop worrying about your 9-to-5 and start to live big. Here's Nick with today's episode.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Live Big podcast. We are going to get right to it today. We've got a lot to talk about. So I'm extremely honored today to be joined by Verl Workman. Verl is the co-founder and CEO of Workman Success Systems. He's an author, a speaker, a successful entrepreneur, a professional storyteller, and is the developer of the Workman Way and Predictable Greatness, specializing in business coaching. As a father, leader, and consultant, Verl's greatest accomplishments are best measured in the life balance of those he leads. So, Verl, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. So, Verl, before we dive into today's kind of topic, I want to start with one of the baselines of your coaching, and really, quite honestly, I think of your own success. And you have kind of coined the phrase predictable greatness, right? I think you've even trademarked that phrase. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So predictable greatness. Tell us what that means and really why it's important to you.
Yeah, great question. So first, predictable greatness, it just comes from life experiences. And I think it goes all the way back to when I used to sell hot tubs and satellite dishes. And I remember being at my first state fair and setting a big goal to sell 10 hot tubs. And at the end of the fair, selling number 10 and watching the guy behind me in the lemonade stand say, he had sold 100. And I'm like, what the crap? How do two people at the same fair have such different results? And it really came to, he believed he could, and then he had a system that he followed. So I put my disguise on and went over and watched everything they did. And the next year sold 70. And what I learned was that by following a system that somebody else actually did that had success, I was able to get a predictable result. I've brought that into every business, everything I've ever done. I've looked for people who do it better. And then what are the drivers that create success? And what I found is that it's often basic fundamentals that a lot of people know they should do, but they don't do it, or they don't do it consistently. And so predictable greatness to me is figuring out the things that have to happen in advance so you can get the result that you want, and then being just absolutely intensely focused on those activities.
That's awesome. So, one of the things that, I want to give people a quick background on really this episode, because originally when I put this episode together, it was based on the mindset that people are constantly reinventing the wheel, right? They're just like, I feel like they're going through the motions, and in my life, I know that I've spent countless hours reinventing the wheel, right? And that I've thought that my intelligence would help me get ahead in life, and that, whatever the way my brain works is, I can figure it out. And what I failed to realize that is, in all this time, I could have been using other people's intelligence instead, right? So yep. It's like, my last year of business coaching, for example, has helped me to understand that I don't need to teach myself how to do everything that I do. I need to find an expert and have them teach me, right? It's not just ROI on my money, it's ROI on my time. And that's something else that we're going to get into here today, because I think that that's a really important piece to understand, is that when we realize our value, not only from a monetary standpoint, but from a time standpoint, it really changes the dynamic in the way that we live our lives, right? So I think, first of all, through coaching, I was able to accelerate my business, right? Years. So it wasn't just like, I don't believe that I necessarily wouldn't have got there, but I do believe there's no way I would have gotten there as quickly. And so what I thought was going to take me 3 years, based on a business plan, based on a model that I had put together. Okay, this is my 3-year, this is my 5-year, this is my 10-year plan. That 3-year plan has taken me less than 1 year. My income has increased. My time spent has decreased. And it's because I'm spending time, instead of spending time trying to figure out what my next step is, my coach already knows what the next step is and has given me the playbook to execute it. So because I've accelerated my business so much, now I'm able to trade money for time. And then I could take that time and trade it back for money again, but at a much higher rate. Right. And then I get to, it's great because you get to decide what you're going to do. Do I want the time? Do I want the money? And I get to decide that. So generally speaking, Verl, I tend to come up with some key points that we talk about during the podcast. But in your case, it's a little bit interesting because, so you're a certified professional speaker, right?
Yep.
Or certified speaking professional, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah, CSP. That's actually a pretty cool thing.
That's awesome. And that's through like the National Speakers Association or something like that?
Yeah, less than 10%, maybe 7% of all speakers worldwide have that designation. It's a pretty intense process. You have to speak at a certain number of events. You have a panel of peers that go through and evaluate your keynote. They reach out to your clients. It's a big deal. And most speakers don't earn enough to get it, and they also don't have they aren't willing to go through the process of being evaluated by a group of very, very good speakers and breaking down your talks and making sure that you qualify. And a lot of speakers bureaus only hire speakers that have that designation. It's pretty cool.
Sure. That's awesome. So, I don't know how many talking points we need. I mean, we're going to talk about predictable greatness. We're going to talk about it from a broad spectrum, not just about real estate agents, for example. And I want to chat a little bit about kind of success habits. And one of the things that you talk about a lot is success habits. And what are those success habits that you use for predictable greatness?
Okay. So what's interesting is, you're in real estate, and I spend a lot of my time, a lot of my clients are in real estate, but this is a business podcast. We talk about business. I spoke just recently at the National Speakers Association. I was a morning keynote for speaking to a bunch of my peers. Now that's the most intimidating audience you can be in front of. And I taught the same principles. I taught what are the daily success habits for a speaker who wants to build a 7-figure business. And you'd think that they had heard something that was the most brilliant thing they'd ever seen in their lives. The principles that work to be successful in real estate are the same principles that work to work as a professional speaker, are the same principles that would work if you owned a retail store. So these success principles are basically what we do is we take and we start asking the question, what is your income goal? We start with where you want to be financially. And then we break it down to activities. And we created a program called the 61 Points of Rhythm, or the Daily Success Habits. And we learned that if you assess points to the things that generate revenue, and you spend most of your day tracking what it is you actually do with your time away from family, you become very aware. And so the 61 points, you get points for making calls that are prospecting calls, points for having conversations, points for having, setting appointments, a buyer appointment or a listing appointment. You get a point if you get a contract signed. And we put all those together, and then we ask you to track in the left-hand side of that column exactly what you do in 30-minute increments every single day. That daily success habits tracker is like golden. And it doesn't matter if you do it on a yellow pad, or if you have an app for it, or if you're doing it in our Coach Simple platform. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you track it. And so when you start tracking it, what happens is you become just acutely aware of how little time you're spending in your day doing things that make any money. And most people like you, Nick, when you start tracking that stuff, you go, holy crap, I didn't spend any time doing dollar productive activities. And you just make course corrections. And so, like, a lot of people think having a coach is this big accountability thing where somebody beats you up, and that just doesn't work. I don't know about you, but you can't hold me accountable. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And so, but if you make me aware of something that's not working, I'm going to fix it, because I don't like things that don't work. So it's kind of like accountability, and this daily success habits tracker to me is awareness. And that awareness creates the ability to choose accountability. I look at having a coach as kind of like having your GPS. So you're driving down the road and you ask for directions somewhere, and you could get there without the GPS on. But if you've ever driven in a new city, I driving in Chicago recently, I call it the Big Dig. And it's a crazy series of freeways and roads, and it looks like an octopus in a spaghetti bowl. And I could figure it out. Or you could turn on the GPS, and even with the GPS on, somebody guiding me through the process, I still miss exits, and it'll say recalculating. And I recognize that I'm on the wrong road, and I make a U-turn and go back. Well, if you don't have anybody in your life letting you know, you would drive down that wrong road for miles before you realized you're headed the wrong direction. So having a coach is critical, having and tracking the right things, and then having someone who has this GPS mapped out that can tell you where to turn left, where to turn right, that's gone down the road before. That makes it so much easier for you to get there. So that's what the Daily Success Habits is. And I'll give you a link, and your listeners can all download a copy of one. I'll give you a few tools you can have.
That's such a, first of all, thank you for that. And I think that's such an incredible analogy. Like I never really thought about it that before, but we, in our everyday lives, I know that, pardon me, I know that, my wife, for example, she GPSs, she puts on her maps anywhere she goes, regardless of whether she knows to get there or not, because she loves the fact that it calculates the traffic. And maybe today there's a better way to go because the traffic is higher. She always has it on. And I only have it on if I don't know where I'm going, but I'm the same way. I still miss turns, right? And we think about that. We think about the lives that we live now. We can't even imagine living without GPS, right? Like imagine as a real estate agent going and showing houses, in today's day and age. And 20 years ago it was MapQuest. You printed out your directions and you had MapQuest. And then 20 years before that, you better just know your market, right? Or have a map with you, right?
We had a guide. We had a street guide that we
exactly. And so the GPS is an incredible analogy. And I think we think about like people in life that maybe use a GPS every single day, but then don't use a GPS for the rest of their life. Like don't use it for the other items in their life. Like, think about that. I want the listeners to really think about that analogy for a second and go, you're exactly right. You can get to wherever you're going eventually. But if you had a tool to get you there quicker and efficiently and less, with less cost, why wouldn't you do that? Right. So your roadmap to whatever it is, your success in business or early retirement or whatever it may be, why aren't we using the tools that are available to us, right? So we pay before our GPSs were on our phones, people paid hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a GPS, right?
Like, oh yeah, I had one. I traveled with my mobile Garmin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these things were, and if you wanted to go to Europe or something like that, thousands of dollars to download European maps, right? And these were tools that people would use because they realized the importance, even if it was expensive, they realized the importance of getting where they were going on time and getting where they were going when they wanted to. So I love that GPS analogy because there's so many people who can't even think about getting to where they're going without using a GPS. Yet the rest of their lives are completely misguided. And there's no true roadmap.
Yeah, it's a pride thing. It's, we think that we can do it on our own. And just because you can do it on your own doesn't mean you should.
That's exactly right. And I think that's
pride.
That's right. And I think that was my mentality for so long. I wanted to feel proud about the fact that, I did this myself. Nobody gave this to me. Nobody, whatever. But it doesn't make any sense to do it that way, right? Especially, like I said, now realizing like there's someone that has a roadmap for everything now, right? There's a roadmap for pretty much everything. And that's the idea. It's the idea behind today's podcast is that somebody's out there that can teach you the ways to be successful. And some of them are free, right? Although you get what you pay for, right? So, everybody's got some advice and got some opinions and things like that. But the idea is whatever money you might spend on coaching or on mentorship or teaching or education will far be outproduced in the fact that you put yourself ahead of everybody else that's on that same path. And so I think, and I think what that does, what's that?
Well, it's possible. It just because you spend the money doesn't mean it's going to work. There's when you say, you spend money and you invest in coaching and education, I see, I've got people in the same market that sign up for coaching at the same time. And one of them has massive success and one of them doesn't. And so they both made the first investment, which is the money, but they didn't make the second investment, which is the investment of time to do the work. And so you can have the best attitude and the most affirmations, and you can get up every morning and say, I eat rejection for breakfast. But if you don't make any calls, you're not going to get the result you want. So we have to qualify it with, the difference between you, Nick, and somebody else who came into coaching at the same time is you just did the work. You got up every day and you said, you know what, I've invested the money and it better work or my wife's going to be ticked off. So I'm going to do the work. So I don't have to justify her that I spent all this money on coaching. And then once you started having a couple of wins, you were like, oh my gosh, that worked. I'll do the next thing the coach tells me to do. And it just kind of piled on top of each other. So you have to recognize that it's kind of like having a GPS, but then not getting off the exit when it tells you.
Right. Back to that GPS analogy. And it's funny because we spend so much money on that technology, right? And then we just don't listen to it, which I feel like I have to call out my dad on this now. And he listens to my podcast, so he's going to hear this. But, my dad's the type of guy that will turn on the GPS, see the route, and then go, no, that's not right, and go a different direction.
I'm totally that dad. I love your dad already.
Yeah. So anyway, you think it's like, man, why would you spend all this money on this technology or this coaching or this mentorship or this education and then not listen to it? Right. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I want to transition from there into leveraging time and leveraging money. We talk about on this podcast, because it's so heavily, we so heavily favor the real estate investment world. We talk about leverage all the time and the power of leverage, but we're talking about financial leverage. We're talking about mortgages and how powerful that can be when you're buying an appreciating asset using leverage. So I want to focus a little bit more on leveraging time on this one. And so I want you to speak on that, because I know that's one of your major key things. And you talk about life balance and how you can leverage your time and still grow your business or grow your life.
Okay. So for me, I've been traveling for 25 years. So I'm a dad that speaks and travels. I have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls, 9 grandkids, and 1 on the way. So we're going to have 10 here pretty soon. And in my early years of travel, I used to be gone a lot. And as I'm gone a lot, I decided that if I'm going to travel and do what I love, which is speaking, that I have to be real intentional about being present when I'm home. And so we set my schedule up so that I would travel a week. And then the week that I was not traveling, I didn't work. So I was actually only working 2 weeks a month. And the other 2 weeks, I was Mr. Mom. I stayed home with the kids. I drove them to their ball games and coached all the stuff that they did. And I started adding up the hours that I spent with my kids. And I had friends that never traveled, that worked full-time jobs, and then they stayed late, and then they never saw their families. And I realized that was an intentional decision I made. And I decided that I was going to always build a business that supported a lifestyle instead of a business that became my lifestyle. When I talk to entrepreneurs, one of the challenges with entrepreneurs is we start our businesses and, the whole goal is that I'm psychologically unemployable. I don't want to work for anyone else. I don't want to be told what to do. I want to have more free time. And then we get into business and we realize, holy crap, this is a lot of work. And if I don't sell something, we don't eat. And so we end up working more. So the whole concept of being an entrepreneur is I want more free time. But the reality is that it has the potential to suck all of your time because there's no one that's going to make your paycheck unless you sell something or unless you do your job. So I guess what it came down to for me was that if I was going to spend an hour away from my family that really needs me, that it had to be worth it. And if I was going to spend an hour away from family, something that I could delegate for $15 or $20 an hour, what I was saying to my kids is, you're not worth $15 or $20 an hour to me. I'm going to do the task myself. And that's pretty harsh. There's a lot of people that will listen to this that'll be like, that's not true. My kids are worth everything. I'm like, well, but your actions speak louder than your words. So if you're gone, you can grow up without a parent, lives when they're with them and truly present, then you're not giving them what they really need. They need us. They don't need our money. I grew up pretty poor and, we had a happy family. And so it wasn't about the money that created happiness. It was about the intent of the parenting and the being present. For me, it's about spending time away from family. So I started thinking about, okay, so what could I have somebody else do that was less than what it would cost me to do it? And so let's say that I charge $1,000 to go out and speak to someone. And I charge a lot more than that, but let's say $1,000. That means during that hour, my time is worth $1,000 an hour. That was my first benchmark. And so the question was, if I'm doing something that pays me less than $1,000 an hour, I should probably delegate it. And so I got my first assistant, and that was game changing because I had an assistant that could do everything, that did my calendar, booked my travel, did all of the things that I was doing myself. And then I realized that this is unbelievable. It went from part-time to full-time. And then I really started having extra time, not just at home, but extra time at work that I could focus on things that generated revenue. So there's three things that we should do as an entrepreneur. The first one is prospect, business development, look for opportunities to do things. Present, that's get those contracts signed or whatever, and then negotiate and close deals. So prospect, present, negotiate. Everything else should be done by somebody else because you can delegate it all. And man, when you realize that you're not that important in all those other things, the client doesn't really care about you. They care about themselves. And so as long as they're getting a great level of service, you can delegate those things. And that's what create leverage. That's what leverage is. It's leverage time away from that. Everybody should write down, if I were to do an activity with everybody, I'd say, okay, everybody write down the value of your time when you're at your best. Like, what is the most you can make in an hour, Nick? Have you ever thought about that? What is the value of an hour of your time?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Doing the most productive thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
a couple thousand, 10,000. I mean, it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. If you
my real number is about $2,500. So $2,500 an hour. That means that anything I do that I could outsource for less than $2,500 an hour, I should be doing it. And what do you think would happen to your financial outcome if you only focused on things that could give you $2,500 return on every hour you spent? Where do you think your income would go? Like, that's it. The problem is we delegate things and then we don't let go. We hire people and then we still do the things, or we micromanage them. We don't empower them to do the job, and it doesn't really change the outcome. So you got to be disciplined to focus on those dollar productive activities. Like, I don't tell anybody this, Nick, but you really don't need to sell houses. Like, you don't. If all you do is business development and people develop and develop other people, your dollar per hour will skyrocket because you're investing other people to create leverage, and you're out there figuring out how to create opportunities for them. And all you have to do is business development, people development. You don't even have to sell houses. And you go to 7 figures in 2 years, but you have to stop trading time for money. Every time you put a buyer in your car, that's $25 an hour activity. Every time you go on a listing appointment, that's 30% of the commission. I'd rather make 70% and not go.
Right. I think that's an incredible point, because it's something that took me many years to really to realize, right? Because I was always the guy that was like, I'm not paying somebody $25 to mow my lawn. Like, I can do that myself. I'm not paying somebody to change my oil. I can do that myself. Right. And once I started realizing what I was trading for, right, it was like, and I think it was because, so many people, for example, if you're not an entrepreneur, right, if you're just working like an hourly or a salary job and you work 40 hours a week and you clock in and clock out and you don't have the ability to work any more than that at that job, it's like, well, I can spend Saturday mowing my lawn and changing my oil. But my point is you could also spend Saturday educating yourself, or, going, doing something that you want to do that will better your financial future, right? And so you may not get paid for that at the time, and you may lose money because you're going to pay somebody $25 to mow the lawn. You're going to pay somebody $75 to change your oil. So you may lose $100 for that Saturday, but maybe the education that you give yourself on that weekend, you save 2-3 hours of work and you go, you know what, I'm going to go to a seminar. I'm going to learn something about empowering myself or improving my life. Like, I think there's a ton of value there. Right. And so
there could be. So what I mean by that is that it's okay if you want, if your happy place is mowing your lawn, you should totally do it. If you love, I pulled in my driveway yesterday. My next door neighbor is like the head of anesthesia for a huge group of hospitals. Like, he makes plenty of money, and he had his car on jacks and he was on his back changing his oil. You know why? Because he likes to. And I don't get it. I don't change my own oil, but for him, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the leverage. It was that's his happy place to get a little grease in his fingernails. So it's whatever makes you happy, right?
Sure.
So if you want to do self-development, I love that. If you want to go play with your kids, I bought a fishing boat. I'm going fishing. Like it didn't I'm kind of at that place in my life now where I want to live well. And so what is your definition of live well? I think that's the key to really being happy in life, is to define what it means to live well, and then build a business creating leverage that creates the amount of income that allows you to whatever your definition of live well is. Right. And I love that you're focused on things like personal development and education and all those things. You're a young guy, and as you get out, you can't unlearn those things. And all of those things that you learn that you're working on for personal development are what's going to put you in a position to be wealthy someday. And I think it's the right thing to do. And I wish more people had that hunger. So I love it.
Well, I think, going back a little bit to where talking about for life balance for one, and then the leverage of time and money, right? If I'm speaking to the listeners today, right, and they and say to them, if you, as a listener, if you could work less and make more, why wouldn't you? Right? Like that's a pretty simple question. Like that's a baited question, right? Like I think everyone would do that. Right. I don't care how much you love your job, right? I don't care how much you love your job. If you had the ability to work less and spend more time with your family, or doing whatever it is you like to do, maybe play, for me, it's playing golf, racing motorcycles. Like I love doing that stuff. And I like work. I enjoy my job. I enjoy doing this, but I would rather be on the golf course right now, or I'd rather be, racing motorcycles right now. Those are the things I really like to do. So if you could work less and make more, why wouldn't you? And I think so many people look at this and they go, well, because I've got this job and this is what it is. But you can. I think everybody can. I think everybody has the ability to work less and make more. And it's not always easy, right? Nobody said it's easy. No, like where you are today, where I am today, it was not easy. It was not easy, but all it took, and I guess you could debate me on this if you want to, but all it took was consistency, right? So we picked a goal, we picked something that we wanted to accomplish, and we chose consistency. Okay. It's no different. I come from a fitness background, right? I was in the gym industry for 10 years prior. Okay. If you went to the gym 3 days a year, you weren't going to see any results. If you went to the gym twice a month, you weren't going to really see any results. You went to the gym 5 days a week. Even if you were doing it wrong, you would see results. You would see progress, right? And one of the things that we talk about, I know that you guys talk about a lot in Workman Success Systems, is progress, not perfection, right? So nobody's perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. You're never going to get it perfectly, but progress. Anytime we're moving in a positive direction, that's what counts. Right. And so you can choose. I really believe that you can choose to make more money. I believe that you can choose to work less. Okay. But it has to be intentional, and everything you do in your life has to be intentional, and it has to be guided by your goals, by your mindset, right? If you have this goal, this is what I want to do. Every decision you make affects that end goal. Every decision you make. Okay. And what an incredible life we live, that we have choice in our life, right? We get to choose everything we do. Everything we do. I get to choose to be here this morning. You get to choose. You could have said no. You get to choose to be here this morning, right? Everything we do has to be intentional, and it has to and align with what our goals in our life are. And so I really do believe that we can choose to do that. And again, it's not easy. But going back to like your daily success habits, or your 61 points of rhythm, and tracking what you're doing every day, right? Are you being intentional, and are you consistent with what you're doing? Because that's what success is all about. Again, you can even be doing it wrong, but if you're consistent with it, okay, there will be some progress, right? Some progress. Because it could be every time you do something wrong, every time you fail at something, it's a learning experience. So you could say, hey, if you consistently do something wrong, you're going to move in the wrong direction. But I believe if you're doing things wrong, you're also learning from those opportunities, right? So the more you show up to the gym to lose weight, even if you don't know what you're doing, to lose weight, to gain muscle, whatever it is, if you don't know what you're doing, every time you show up to the gym and you start being more consistent and you're there 4 days, 5 days a week, and you know the members and you know the staff, those staff members, those other members are going to start coming up to you and they're going to say, hey, can I show you something? Can I teach you something? Because I see your dedication. I see your motivation. I see that you're here every day. But can I re-guide you? Can I change your path a little bit to help you out? Is that not true, Verl? I mean, if you see people, moving in and you see this consistency and you see this hard work and this effort, does it make it a little bit more like you're willing to reach out to those people and say, hey, can I tweak your plan a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good analogy. I don't know why you're picking on me for not going to the gym every day, but I get the metaphor. And I've been like 3 days this week, so I'm doing better. I'm focused on progress, not perfection. I built a program for a bunch of Olympians one year. It was called Team USA Coaching. And I was hired by these gold medal winning Olympians to help them build a coaching program. And I asked John Neighbor, who was the president of US Olympians. He had 4 gold medals, 3 silver medals in swimming. He was an unbelievable athlete. And I said, John, who do you coach when you have this much success in life? And he said, Have you ever seen a kid at the park with like a Labrador puppy on a leash, and that puppy is pulling that kid through the park and he's holding on with that leash and it's just going? And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. He goes, I coach that puppy. He says, if I have to motivate you or put a carrot in front of your nose or kick you to get going, he says, I don't have the energy for it. So you have to be the person on the end of that leash saying, put me in, coach. I want to go. You got to be the one showing up at the gym every day. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do something because nothing's not going to work. So he's like, coach that puppy. That's always been my philosophy, is trying to identify who the puppies are. Who are those that are just, they want it so bad. They just want to go. They just don't know how to do it with the right. They don't know which direction to go or have the controls put in place. So that's what I think about when I think about it's simple. The concepts are simple, but it's not easy because you have to do the work. So when you talk about life balance, I use 5 F's. And the things that I think you need balance in are family, faith, friends, fun, and fitness. Now, fitness I'll use interchangeably with food because I prefer that. But so family, faith, friends, fun, and fitness/food. And having balance in all those things and having good balance in your life has a massive impact on your finances. What most people don't realize is when they focus so heavily on their finances, they usually do it at one of the other 5. Expense. So I'm going to work on finances at the expense of my family or my faith or my fun or my fitness. And so I don't usually give up food, but the other ones I'll give up. So what happens is you focus on finances at the expense of the others. And that is not a intentionally created life. Either every life, every business, every culture is either accidentally created, it happens to us, or it's intentionally created. We make it happen. And you know how many people I talk to, Nick, they'll come to me at a conference or seminar after I've spoken and said, hey, I say, tell me about you. And they go, I'm a realtor, I'm normal, I'm divorced. And that breaks my heart because they associate this concept of I'm married to my work, so I'm not successful in my other marriage. And there's a lot of that. Like it'll blow your mind if you saw the numbers in there because they don't know how to create that balance. And so I'm on a personal mission to help people not only see that you can have it all, you can have great income, you can have a great life, and you can do it and have an amazing family and enjoy the things that really matter the most. I was talking to somebody the other day, matter of fact, just yesterday. I had a coaching consult with a lady, and she had a great business. She sold 300 houses a year, and her husband had retired, and they had plenty of money, and she looked tired. And I said, "Why are you still doing it?" She says, "I want to do it for my kids." And I says, "But you just told me your husband's retired. You have plenty of money in the bank. Why are you really doing it?" And she says, "Oh, I just know I'm capable of doing more." I said, "Yeah, but why?" Oh man, it was really weird to watch her pause and think about it and then say, I don't know. And I said, well, what do you want to do? She says, well, I want to be comfortable traveling the world with my husband. I want to do, and she listed all those things. And I said, well, you have all the money to do it. Why are you still selling all these houses? Why do you still care about work so much? And she says, well, no one can do this. I want to take care of these people. I said, you want to take care of them more than your husband? Like you want to do that more than you want to travel? You want to do that more than be a grandparent? And like it got emotional. And it was because it's all she knew. And she's worked so hard to create this financial success. She didn't know how to do anything else. And it took somebody looking at her life from a different perspective and holding up the mirror and saying, is this really what you want? If not, if it isn't, then let's fix it. She's like, how do I fix it? I said, we're going to get you a coach. We're going to train your team to lead the team, and you can still own it, but you don't have to work in it anymore. You're fired. She looked at me like, that's what I want. I just don't think it's possible.
Wow. That's incredibly powerful to think about, right? That you're right. You get people that, and they do. I think a lot of people love their jobs, and I think they really enjoy helping people. But when you put it into that perspective, like, well, do you want to help these people, or spend time with these people? Or you want to spend time with your family? You want to spend time with your husband? You want to spend time? And what are you working for all these years if it's not for an end goal, right? Like, if she's doing 300 homes a year, I don't care what market she's in. She's got money, right?
Oh, she's killing it. Success is not the issue. Part of it is she's driven, and she's a super high D personality. She loves the game. She loves negotiation. I said, I love all those things too. It's just that I had to ask that internal question. What do I love more? It's not that I still don't love all those things. It's just that I really am clear at what I love more. And I love my wife more, and I love my kids more. I love my God more. I want to do things that make a difference in the world. I did some coaching recently for a bunch of young entrepreneurs in Africa, and I was able to donate it. I had 75 young business leaders that were all starting businesses and had small businesses that were running, and we coached them for 6 months. And I took them through daily success habits, doing my perfect week, creating the 5 F's, building 4 pillars of income, all the things that we teach. And it was transformational in their lives. And I did it for free. And I got more joy out of that than anything that I've been paid to do. And so what financial security gives you the ability to do is make a difference in other people's lives, regardless of whether or not you get paid. That's, to me, that's a greater measure of success than a bank balance.
Sure. I agree with that. I know that, so many people gauge their levels of success on that, how much money's in the bank, right? But I think that, one of the important things for me, I know one of the things that my wife and I are very passionate about is the ability to give back, whether it's time or money. And and obviously, if you don't make enough money, you don't have money to give back, right? But so the goal is like, hey, can we make enough money to where it doesn't hurt to give? One of the charities that we support is Children's Miracle Network. Okay, they've had a huge impact on our lives, and so and on my life personally, and so from many years ago. But the idea is like, how can we extend that? How can we even increase what we can do for Children's Miracle Network, right? And so. If I don't make a lot of money and then I don't have the ability to give to them financially, right? If I don't leverage my time, I don't have any time to give to them, right? So those things are really important. And I think so many times we put a value on our lives, or we put I want to say, like, we judge ourselves by the amount of money that we make, right? And I think that we're looking at that wrong, because, I want to go through like this quick exercise, and just humor me if you would, Verl, because I want people to, listeners from this perspective, because I want them to go through this exercise while they're listening to this in their car on the way to work or whatever it may be. But Verl, if I give you $5 million today, okay, no strings attached, here's $5 million. First of all, would you take it?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, you don't let free money go away, right? No strings attached, $5 million. And how would it make you feel? Like, in the moment, gave you $5 million. How does it make you feel? Grateful, happy, elated, excited, emotional, right? You just feel so good about it, right? And you start maybe calling your friends, and you're like, man, we're going to dinner tonight, or hey, we're going on vacation. Or you call your wife like, hey, I just had this great windfall of $5 million, right? So, but now let's say I give you $50 million. Okay. But if you take it, you don't get to wake up tomorrow. Are you taking that money?
Nope.
No chance. No chance. So what you're saying is you give up $50 million just to wake up one more day. And your life's not guaranteed. Your life is not guaranteed beyond tomorrow. It's not guaranteed beyond today. Okay. But you would give up $50 million for just one more day. What an incredible value that we put on our lives. Yet we wake up every single day doing the bare minimum, the status quo, just so that we can continue to wake up every single day for the rest of our lives to be status quo.
That's true. I have a client in Texas, and she says, I wake up every day broke, and I figure I have to make the money every day. And she works that way. And she's one of the most successful people I know. So it's just kind of an interesting analogy you give. Money doesn't make us happy at all. It's just it's a means to an end.
It's right. It is a means to an end. And I think if people really understood the value that you put on your life, right? And you go, well, I would rather live than have that much money. Okay. So that means those 5 F's that you talked about, okay, those have more value than any amount of money in your bank. And those 5 values had nothing to do with money, right? They have to do with the way that you're living your life. Okay. And I get that those 5 things sometimes cost some money, right? But the idea is that for those of you who are, again, driving to work today, whatever, sitting at work, listening to this, if that's the feeling, if that's the rut that you feel like you're stuck in, and it's just this, you're waking up every single day, status quo, and every single day, status quo, you don't have to do that. Okay. If you can just improve yourself 1% every day, right? If you can just take one step in the right direction every single day, it's progress, not perfection. And I think if there was one point, like for this entire podcast that I want people to understand, it's progress, not perfection. Okay. And we can take that point and we can take your coined trademarked phrase of greatness is predictable. And we can take those 2 things and understand that if we're making progress, it is predictable that we're great and we're intentional about the things that we do. We're intentional about the actions and the choices that we make on a day-to-day basis. We can predict that your life is going to change for the better, that those 5 F's are going to have, that you're going to improve in every category. Okay. Because we're intentional about each of those categories every single day. Right? If you don't like going to the gym, if it's difficult for you to go to the gym, okay, and you're like, man, I don't have an hour in my day to go to the gym, don't go for an hour. Go for 15 minutes. Okay. If you're a real estate agent, if you don't want to sit down and prospect for 3 hours, don't prospect for 15 minutes. Anybody can do anything for 15 minutes, right? You can do anything for 15 minutes, no matter how much you hate it. Okay. And once it becomes habit,
lots of time doing things.
Right? There's so many things that we can do. So I want to end this with just a couple of quick quotes that I really like. And one of them comes from John Wooden, who was the UCLA Bruins basketball coach for, I don't know, like 40 years or something like that. And one of his quotes was, a good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And that was, to me, that's really powerful because I think that's really true, right? And we look back on people maybe who have had an impact on our lives, right? Or people that haven't had an impact on our lives. We might have had a coach, might have had a little league coach or something like that. And you look back and you're like, they were a great coach. But I want you to dig a little deeper and think back to those people that weren't just great coaches or great teachers, but they changed your lives, right? I think we all have somebody. I have a couple of teachers that changed my life. They were great teachers or they weren't great teachers. It doesn't matter. But whatever they did, they changed my life. Those people did something that impacted me so much that I still remember those people to this day. Right. And so a coach, a mentor, a teacher, an educator, whatever it may be, like a great one of those is life-changing. And I think that's so important. And I think that's what you aim to do. And I know that's what everybody that works for you aims to do. Is to change people's lives, not to help them earn more money, it's to change their lives in whatever direction they want to go, right? In fact, the woman you just talked about, you're trying to teach her not to make more money. Stop making so much money. Change your life.
Yeah, money's not the measure. Money's not the biggest motivator. It's important. Like, when my wife and I got married, we said that we wanted to be able to make decisions for our family because it was the right thing to do or not the right thing. We don't want money to be the deciding factor. We can't do it. We don't have the money. And so we've always been driven for success financially. because we never want money to be the factor of what we make decisions on around our life. And so it's not because of the money, but it's because of the power that it gives. It gives you the empowerment. You have a family member that needs help to just step up and write the check. When you have a friend that is in a dire situation, you can make a difference. You can't just give them moral support. You can actually move the needle for them. And so to me, money is a tool that you can use to serve others. And it's important to have some so you have stability and security in your life, but that's not what drives us. And we help people make a lot of money, but we don't do it at the expense of their family, their faith, their friends, their fun, or their fitness. So
that's right.
I want people to have success, however they measure it. And man, if you're that puppy on the leash, then reach out to a Workman coach and let's go. We'll help you.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to leave with one last quote, which is coaching isn't about what's wrong. It's about what's next. It's about creating a path and a game plan and a playbook for where we want to be. And that's so important to remember that, it's not about the day-to-day accountability. It's not about telling you what you're doing wrong. It's about helping you get to where you want to be, regardless of what you're doing. So
I love that. I'm totally going to use it.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Verl, thank you so much for your time today. I knew you'd be a stellar guest to have on the show. And if you'd ever like to come back on, please let me know. I'm sure you and I could talk for hours and hours and days with, about whatever we wanted to talk about. So I know I'd love to have you back on. Listeners would love to have you back on. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And all right, to all my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, big thank you to Verl Workman. Remember, predictable greatness, okay, from Verl Workman. And so today, remember, go out, be great, and always remember to live big.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Live Big podcast. For even more real estate and investment resources, go to blackyetigroup.com/resources and download Nick's complete guide to running your own rental properties. Tune back in next week for another episode, and until then, live big.
Live Big does not provide investment, legal, or tax advice, and nothing herein should be construed as being financial, legal, tax, or other advice. Live Big does not represent that any securities or services discussed are suitable for any investor. No investment or other decision should be made solely based on the contents or information found on the website or podcast. When making a decision about your investments, you should seek the advice of a professional financial advisor or qualified expert.